Hit it.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.
Well, welcome to my whiskey den, and today we are graciously enough and grateful enough to have Mark Townsend show up from Canada. He owns Silver Fox Distillery and also the YouTube channel Still in Canada. Still in Canada is a wonderful YouTube channel if you're trying to learn about whiskey. He is very transparent about what they're doing there, how everything got built from the start, mash bills, everything else that's going on. It's a tremendous resource if you're just trying to get started and learn how it works. So you should definitely stop that out. And he's much better at editing than any one of us. So his videos might be a little more concise. But thank you, Mark, for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for the kind words. I wouldn't say anything about the early videos, but it was, you'll see on the Still in Canada that it was all learning. So I started distilling when I was 13, and I grew up in Cape Breton Island. So that's what we did. That's just, how we get along and spent our time. Yeah, we're in the backwoods and doing that. So as we transitioned and decided to do a retirement project that'll keep us busy, keep us, constantly thinking and learning, we decided about 5 years ago to start into this. We looked into it and I thought, you know what? I know how to make a great molasses shine. Tastes like shit, but wow, it does hit you nicely. And I thought, one day I'd love to do some rum, which is what the molasses was supposed to do. But yeah, so I started on the journey, and I wanted to do it, and I wanted to learn every aspect of it because I knew, in essence, where I wanted to go with this. So I needed to learn how different stills work, how a design or a design change on a still worked. So that's what Still in Canada was all about. It was about designing the still, making the recipe from scratch, learning the finer points. I mean, when you do a molasses shine, you grab grandma's pressure cooker and you throw it all in, and a week later you throw it on the fire and see what you get. But now it's a matter of learning, what is specific gravity? What do I need to put into the mash as far as nutrients and all that? And where is everything happy? What does, it takes well over a year to understand and never fully learn what each yeast will give a different flavor to. So, getting that alone was huge. And we had some great help from Lulliman. We went down, did a couple of their courses. Lisa, my wife, she just spends a lot of time with me doing this as well. So she's over in the corner making stuff. And that's how we started.
No, and that was going to be kind of my first thing. Like, what was your whiskey history? And you kind of knocked that one out right off the bat. But I mean, it's always like, what did you get excited about? What kind of turned you on to it? And like you said, you guys are making like your own molasses shine, which is pretty interesting because we're not supposed to play with stills in the States, but there's some work that's been done by some people. But that's really neat. That's kind of the progression, and how many years later you kind of came back to it. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I did a lot in between, and I just, it was a while before I came back to it. And we always said right from the beginning that we're not going to do anything illegal. The statute of limits when I was prior to 16 that's taken care of. So anything after the age of 16, we needed help. And I have a friend of mine that owns a distillery. So you'll see in my videos, the very first little bit, we used my garage, and I did all the work at home. I mashed in, I did my calculations, did all that, and I built the still at home. But whenever I put a mash into that still, I took the still over to my buddy's distillery. That way it was legal. So, and we weren't big into consuming what I was making. We were into trying so many different things and trying variations to see what flavors we could produce. And, we worked hard on our signature moonshine, and that's a 3-grain moonshine, which just knocks you right out.
So you, along with doing the process of actually making the spirits, you've been, I think, more open than some people would be about just the process of getting the distillery itself off the ground. So
Yeah, and that's in the nature of the beast. That's the way we are. If you see my channels, and I'm also on quite a bit of forums, and I mentor quite a few people, and we've had those people here at the distillery. You know, they've had a day, so I said, well, come on out. I'll do a run, and we'll just walk you through everything from start to finish. That way, they're getting legal knowledge, and you know, it helps them make decisions down the road.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, but yeah, like you said, it was I don't know. It was kind of like a little bit like the Whiskey Tribe, where you were pulling people into the behind the scenes of how things were getting put together and kind of fitting in. Today we're getting this. This is this. We're behind because the inspector didn't like something, and just all sorts of like little behind the scene things that pop up that most people kind of just gloss over and like, oh, look at all the shiny, pretty stuff in your, in here, right behind you. Look at all this nice, shiny, pretty stuff, and it just magically showed up with no problem. Everyone put it in just fine.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the different iterations I did with my little still, I did everything. I made the bubble plates. I did all that, and all that was so I could design what's behind me. So I've designed everything here, and wherever we ran into a pitfall with the small one, we took care of that with the big one, just learning how to get around things. So, it's kind of neat. We visited, and we're friends with all the distilleries in our area. So, and we talk quite a bit. But before I finished the design of this, I was watching them, and I watched each one do a mash run and do a distill run. So, and I'm standing back, and I may not be saying a whole lot, but boy, I'm sure sucking it all in. It's getting in there. So I'm watching them, and I'm looking and going, why are you doing it that way? It just, not saying anything, just watching how they're doing their thing. So, and that helped a lot. So in this system, as you can see, there's a skid of corn behind me. That's going to be gone in the next 2 days. But essentially, I hate this backward stuff. So the mash
so do we. That happens to us all the time. I'm like, look,
the mash tun's right here. Yeah, the mash tun's right there, and it's running right now. It's got a moonshine corn in it, and right now it's running at 109. I took it right up to 195. I use a Lallemand amylase, so the alpha amylase. I've added that, and it runs for 90 minutes with that in there. It takes the starches of all the corn and converts it to sugar. So, and there's something I learned. So I had to learn about amylase and how to do that. So when I watch one fellow who does a great moonshine product, I watch him. He does a sugar wash, and he throws the corn in, and then he runs the corn for about a half hour, and then dumps it out into the fermenter. And I'm looking, well, all that money in starches is gone. You're not converting it. You're not getting anything out of it. So I looked at it, I tried it his way, and then we tried it our way with the amylase after some investigation. And we also did some malted barley as well, but we wanted to keep the recipe simple for our moonshine. Now, once again, it's complex compared to others, but simple enough. So when we put the corn in, we convert the corn, and then when we take it down to 150, we'll add our sugar to that. But the body of the converted corn makes it a whole different taste and a whole different mouthfeel, and it's fantastic. So when I designed the system, that was one thing I learned. And here we go again, bloody hell. So when I put the water in the mash tun, I mix everything up, cook it, do everything, drain it. And the neat thing is, all I do is I open up a valve in the back of the mash tun, turn on the motor, and it pumps it to whichever one of these fermenters I want. So it automatically pumps it to there. Now, it's still a little warm. You have to crash cool it. So on all these fermenters, you'll see the little puck marks here. That's actually a jacket around the fermenter itself, and it's a water jacket. So when I move to the fermenter, I crank the water jacket on. I can't pitch yeast before, I have to be below 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I try to get down to 80 because that's where I want to pitch it at. And different temperatures affect the flavor of what you're making. So you have to watch that. And certain things, like if I do a rum, I want that rum sitting about 90 degrees. Whereas if I'm doing a whiskey, I want around 70, 72. So I'm going to pitch at 80 degrees for my yeast, my nutrients, and my beta amylase. So once it's sitting in this Sorry.
I do this every episode, so it's good to see someone else do it. So
once I'm doing it in this, now I need to cool it down, crash cool it as fast as I can, or else my pH starts to drop out on me. So I open up the valve in the bottom of the fermenter, I close the mash tun, turn on the pump, and it now sucks it out of the bottom of the fermenter, takes it up, and drops it in the top. And it does that cycling. So now all that's done through the pump, and that also aerates it. So, and that's a point that a lot of the small distillers don't quite get, that the yeast really needs a good supply of air bubbles in the mash for the first 3 days. When it's hot, there is no air in there. So once you get it below 90 degrees Fahrenheit and you start aerating it, your yeast are going to be a whole lot healthier. So we do that for about an hour. It just let it cycle through, cool off, gets below 80, and you can see the aeration within the mash. That's when we pitch our yeast and all our other stuff. After about 7 to 10 days, depending on what we're doing, we'll open up the valve at the bottom, turn on the pump, and it pumps it over to whichever one of the two stills I want. So I never touch this stuff after I put it in initially.
Neat. That's definitely something you'd see at a bigger facility, where you're like, I don't even touch it.
Yeah, and that's it. We didn't tour a whole lot of big facilities. We just did the small ones, and we looked at how they worked and how they were. We were watching them attaching hand pumps and everything else to move stuff around. We're going, that's nuts. No thanks. I like shiny shit.
Well, you said this was a retirement project, so the easier the better, right?
Yeah. It's once again we're not spring chickens, hence the reason for Silver Fox. The wife wouldn't let me put old as shit on the door, so
that could be a special release.
Yeah.
So we wanted to go and be able to do this well into our late 70s or 80s. So we're at a point now that, there's a couple more things we're going to do, like adding the grains. That's a 50-pound bag of grain. I have no issue lifting it now, but when I'm 72, 75, maybe I will. So we're actually going to put an auger system, so it comes right off the hammer mill and augers right into the mash tun.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Nathan's got a quick question for you. Mm-hmm. He was wondering, are you making whiskey in the traditional Canadian way where you distill and age all the grains separately, or are you doing mixed ingredient mash bills?
Yes and no. Sorry.
No, that's
yeah.
Yes.
We're doing it all here.
We are Canadian, and we do follow that tradition. So, well, like I say, that's a skid of corn behind me. That's going to be gone the next 2 days into the fermenters. And you'll see all these totes over here. Well, maybe you don't see them all, but there they are. Yeah, we have a lot of totes we've been running just for sanitizer. We're actually going to utilize them to do some more corn, and then some oats, and then wheat and rye. We're going to mash them all separately. Where I do take the differences, we're not going to age them separately. Now, when we do our moonshine, we'll blend the corn, oats, and wheat, and that is our moonshine. And the one thing I won't do is tell you what percentages they are. That's all done to flavor. You test it, and it took us a long time to get the exact ratios that we're happy on our palate. But when we do the moonshine, we mix them right away. That's stored in one tote, and that's ready to go for some of our liqueurs and this and that. We can also do, because oats may not taste good in a certain liqueur, but corn does. And same with the wheat. So we use each one separately as well. Now, when we go to barrel, we do head to the States for that one. We blend what we want to go into the barrel, and we do it that way. Because we're not big enough, maybe we will be down the road, but we're not big enough to have a warehouse full of individual barrels, and we choose from the end to blend. But we know what we're putting in there. And it's the same way as in the States. We know what we're putting in there. We blend it. We know exactly it is. Basically, if you like what's going in and your barrel's good, you're going to like what's coming out.
Yep.
So we're not going to be blending 6 to 100 barrels. We're going to be doing single cask release when we get there.
Ooh. Yay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, but let's be honest, everyone
yeah.
likes that in the end anyways. Like, you can have your normal
You know,
whiskey release.
essentially.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
everyone's
Yep.
like, oh, I get my
And-
special barrel. Yay.
Yeah, and depending on what we're doing, typically we're going to be putting them into the barrel at 60 ABV to 62, and they'll drop down a bit as we bring it out. Hold on a second. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Sorry, the wife was telling me it's time to add something to the mash tun.
Hey, like we said, if you have to go do
that
real
one's fine.
business work, you
That
jump
one's
up into
fine.
the stills when you need it.
Yeah, the still I may have to run in a bit. So crap. Where was I? So we were putting in the ABV. We'll pull out a different flavor from the wood, and we're experimenting with that. So we've done some trials with that. We're also experimenting, and it's going to be a little more in depth. It's probably going to be a winter project. There's 2 winter projects this year. One is a self-running malting machine. So we want to have a 55-gallon drum turned on its side, all the electronics in, and it'll rotate the grains, soak them down, dry them out, soak them down, dry them out, keep them misted at a certain humidity. When they've sprouted just enough, then we'll turn on the heater and the fan. It heats them, but we also have a smoker plugged in. So you know those Bradley smokers that drop the pucks?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're making up our own pucks, and we're going to do it because we need this. Right now we're doing a bourbon style. That's what we're barreling. But come the fall, we're going to be barreling a Scotch style, 100% barley. But we don't want to use, like most companies will import the peat in order to get that Scotch, region. Yeah. We don't want that. We want Canadian peat. So we have peat bogs in Ontario, and we've already ordered in supplies, tried them. And you don't get that sickly briny that you would on some of the heavy Islas, but you get an amazing peat taste in there. So we're gonna have the machine do it all in one shot, and then we can just throw the barley into the mash tun.
And using your own peat really makes it like regional. Like this is distinctly us.
Yeah. That is the one defining thing. We said that right from the beginning. Everything will be regional as much as possible. Our bottles do come from China. We thought they were from Italy, but they're coming from China. Sorry. But all our grains are local. In fact, we know some of the farmers that provide our grains. So that's it. And same with our spent grains. They all go through local pig farmers. So, it's a close-knit region of what we can do. Yeah. And we want that to reflect in everything we make. So, that's why we're doing that. The other thing I'm looking at is a rapid aging system. I have some severe ideas on that. And you look around, you look at what other people have done in this area, and you're going, wow, you made some mistakes. And, you don't knock it off right off. You do try it, but we've come up with a system that I believe will be just dead on. You know what? You're never going to get, in 2 weeks, you're never going to get a 15-year-old barrel. That's physically not possible.
Yeah.
But I bet you we can fool a few of you. Yes.
Well, you were meant. Oh, sorry.
No, so you talked a little bit about a couple of the upcoming ones, the bourbon style and Scotch style, and one thing I think is really interesting is I know that in Canada you need to make a Canadian whiskey and you are doing that, but you're really, it's cool that you'll try something and you're like, I'm going to make my own version of this.
Oh,
and you're at the place that you can, and you're like, why not? So, but what are some of those other ones that if you can, that you want to talk about that you've said, I'm going to make this style, whatever. I mean, you can't call things, like you can't say you're making a bourbon, but you are making bourbon style.
We can never call it a bourbon. It's always Canadian whiskey, regardless. Even if I don't have rye in it, I can still call it a rye in Canada. It's the most bizarre thing. But we are doing a 100% rye as well. We're going to try that out. It's funny because the wife and our partners, they do not like leaving me alone in here. It's not good.
But we do.
Yeah, we do.
Hey, I make a shitload of a mess, but they left me unattended last week, and when they came back, there's a new lemon moonshine, which is really tart and nice.
Oh.
And there is a key lime pie moonshine sitting out there.
Oh, man.
That sounds
I'm going to tweak up the lime a touch and bring up the ABV a touch. But yeah, it's already well on its way. And then I did a 4 peppercorn shine.
That just sounds like Bloody Mary all day. That's just
Well, we don't really have Bloody Marys here. We have Caesars, but just different juice. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, so we use the clamato, and we'll throw that in with the peppercorn, and it's fantastic. You 2 ingredients, a pickled bean in there, and you're all set. But it's also a great. Now, once again, we're on a highway that and we're the only distillery in Ontario that's actually in a commercial zone. Everyone else is in industrial, so we're right beside a subway. And we have a huge cottage country traffic that'll flow through here when all this pandemic is over. So we want to cater a little bit to them, although still keep our sophisticated style. But the peppercorn was definitely catering to them, and I pity any poor bastard who takes shots of that. Oh, the wife is looking at me because she thought it was the iced tea I'd done. We also do last couple weeks ago. I made up a cinnamon. Now, you've all had Fireball, and I tried to stay away from that. And that's okay. That's the one thing I do is I try to stay away from something that's already out there. I don't want something that's the same as everyone else. I want to be unique. I want to be different. So at the cinnamon, we looked at it. We're going, well, how do we make this really nice but not a Fireball? So I sourced out some Ceylon cinnamon and some Saigon cinnamon. We blended that, made an oil, added that to it, and it is a soft, smooth cinnamon liqueur. It's really nice. It doesn't burn you. It warms you. It sits on your tongue forever. It's just really nice. And then all of a sudden, I'm an idiot, and I add the peppercorn to it. It shocked the hell out of me. Boy, do I love that.
So can you put signs out when the traffic comes back up? Just say, this pairs with a number 2 club.
Well, that's one of the neat things is we actually hate it if somebody comes in and just gets a bottle but's never been here before. I personally have an issue with that. I have spent so many years buying $600, $400 bottles of scotches to get home with the cork on. This is shit. We don't let that happen if we can avoid it. So we have our tasting bar. If someone's interested, come on up, have a little sip, know what you're getting. And you know what? I don't ever want someone to open up a bottle and say, this is horrible. We all have different flavor profiles. So, if one of our bigger sellers is the lavender blood orange, and it's really good. But there has been, I think, maybe out of 100 people, there's been 2 or 3 that say, ooh, don't like this. That's fine. And when they say that, which is great, I love hearing that encounter, because once someone says they don't like this profile, I can instantly switch them to another profile that they do like, and it instantly. So
you can start honing in on what they like and kind of be like, okay, you're not this, you're this, and I have the answer to that.
Yep. And it's neat how it happens. So yeah, they get that first little going, well, that's not really what I want or what I like. So I just reach over, grab this bottle, put it there. Wow, that's great. And to be able to do that is wonderful. It's seldom. It's pretty rare if someone walks out of here with something they don't like.
That's good, though. I mean, that's good marketing and everything. It's always better to have someone happy when they leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are the ones that come back, and those are the ones that bring friends with them.
And Nathan just jumped in before we get too far away from it. He was like, okay, so it's essentially a cinnamon oil washed white dog.
Close, but add an inverted simple syrup to it as well.
Okay.
Just to bring up the sweetness a bit, because the cinnamon itself is too harsh. So you have to balance that out with the white dog. Now we're running it at 100 proof, so it gives you that good mouthfeel.
Nice. And I'm happy that you're doing that, because I am someone that, like, when someone says, "Do you like cinnamon?" I'm like, well, I like 2 versions of cinnamon, and then there's these other 6 that I hate, like with an absolute passion.
Yeah, and you know what? It was funny because when we started looking at doing off of cinnamon, and I actually had not had Fireball up to that point, so I went out and bought a small little Mickey of Fireball, tried it, and gone, wow, okay, that's candy heart all day long. That's all you're tasting. I said, I don't really want that. Now, you're not Canadians, so you don't have Tim Hortons where you are, but you do have donut shops. So most donut shops in their apple fritters are using a Saigon cinnamon.
Mm-hmm. That's the stuff I love.
Right. So that flavor is a lot softer with just a bit of a tinge. And so that's why I went after the Saigon. But the Saigon alone was not enough. So, and the Saigon's cheaper. But using the Sri Lanka Ceylon cinnamon, it's a little more expensive. But wow, it sure does make the difference.
Nice. I'm going to jump back a second, because when you were talking about the malting machine, you're developing that from scratch. I don't think everyone else knows that. I know you were doing that. You design work, everything. You're building that from scratch. So you're making something. You're inventing something that hasn't really been done in that manner before. That's what I love about you're taking stuff to another level and being like, I can not only with the whiskeys and the stuff you're developing, you're like, we can make a machine that does this. You know,
and you know what?
You're not held back.
And we're going to show it all. Now, I've also contacted a few other YouTube channels, Bearded and Board, George from Barley and Hops, and Jesse from Still It. And I've told them what my outlay is, and I sent them all a 30-page document outlining the whole thing. And they're looking at me going, what are we doing? So, I've got plans. So and once it's done, we're going to put everything online.
Yeah.
So if you have a small distillery, or you can even scale this whole thing back, you can make it yourself. And yeah, we're fine with that.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that. I'm like, well, that's a hell of a share, because that really, I mean, in some small places, all of a sudden, this is a machine that can start helping you produce some pretty amazing stuff, or jump from your standard releases, like you said, to some really neat scotches, or like even we met someone that was doing like a malted wheat just in the last week or two, and he's like, not many people do it, but he's like, it really did add a little bit of extra depth to what they were producing. So
we've malted the wheat, rye, corn, we've done, even triticale, so we tried quite a few grains to see where it goes.
Nice.
So you're talking about doing, experimenting with different aging techniques, etc. Are you using primarily standard size barrels, or are you working with some different size barrels, etc.?
You know what? It's funny, because you see every small distillery starts with a small 20 gallon barrel, and that's what they're using. No, every one of our barrels is 56 to 58.
Okay.
So all standard size. Now what we're doing is, and this also where you have to bring it into the community. So we have one room in the distillery here. It's a bonded room. Right now, that's where the forklift is parked. And I have an old vintage car in there as well, but it's a bonded room. So it allows me it's locked off, it's sealed up, but it's kind of neat. We have a unique area that we're in that just over here, there is a, what is it? They make compost. So for putting in bags so you can do your gardens and all that. So it's a composting smell that it's in the air. Some days it'll knock you out trying to walk to the distillery, depending on which way the wind's blowing. But the lingering, forget about the peaks, but the lingering smell from it, of that organic material, that's seeping into those barrels. So the bonded room actually has air going in and out. So we'll heat it up, cool it down, and we'll keep running it so the wood actually works a lot.
Nice.
But we actually bring in that smell, or bring in that air, to aid in bringing out more of an earthy note, and that you would find in a Scotch.
So are the barrels, or the cooperage, is it a Canadian cooperage, or where do you guys get yours?
It is a Canadian cooperage. Now I don't. He is making me up some new ones. Right now I've got I got a few Heaven Hill barrels. I've got a few brandy barrels that were Canadian brandy.
Ooh,
I've got some barrels from Hiram Walker, and right now he's doing me up a batch of French oak. Because French oak provides more of a vanillin than the American oak does. So we're going to play with that for a bit.
That does sound exciting, and I think it's neat that you're just jumping right into the 53 and saying we're going to let it age an extra year or two to get to kind of where you want it to be, rather than getting kind of excited and I don't know, releasing it early sometimes, because a lot of times those small barrels will give you kind of green notes in them and stuff.
Oh, they will. You'll get the harshness out of them. We've had several distilleries that they pulled it out early, and they're talking their aged spirit, and it's a standard statement. We tried that, and they've used the smaller barrels. That you're tasting it, and I'm right across the board: Scotch, bourbon, Irish, and I've had a lot. In fact, my bar is overflowing, and the wife is kind of bitching about that. But so.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. I just thinking that. I just thinking that last conversation.
I've been yelled at too. So
yeah. And you know what the neatest thing is? The wife was never really much of a liquor drinker until about 5 years ago when we started down this path. She would always turn up her nose to it. So when she saw my collection, she's kind of getting a little. Now she's into Lafroigs, and so that's eased off a little.
Yeah. It's nice when you get the nod from her, like, "Why don't we get this bottle?" And it's like before you're like, she'd just be upset I'm getting another bottle. Now she's like, "Yes, I think we should get that one." It's nice to get that little bit of reassurance from it.
Yeah, she brought me home an STR, and I'm going, "Oh, I love you." So. Yeah, we looked at it, and we actually sat down and did it on paper as to how are we going to do this. So with the barrels, Lise, could you just check the stills for me? Let me know what temperature it is. The flag should be set fine. So we looked at the large barrels, and we thought, you know what, let's just do it the right way. If it takes 5-6 years before we can actually cast strength out of a barrel, so be it. That's fine. Because remember, I said we do have plans for a rapid aging machine, and that's going to fill in that period of time. So we are going to do an aged spirit. We're going to call it that, but it's going to be run through a machine in about 2-3 weeks, and we're utilizing it now. Who's ever watched Stargate Atlantis here? Excellent. And forget it. You're just going over your head. So, you remember on the back wall those bubblers that were there? The actual bubble? That's actually my rapid aging machine. It's going to sit in between these fermenters because I need the CO2 from the fermenters. So the CO2 coming out of the fermenters are actually going to go in the bottom of the chamber. And I've got a few other things in there as well. But a lot of people have made the mistake of using oxygen they're putting oxygen in to try and work the wood. But that's one of the worst things you can do because it oxidizes your whiskey so fast. Yep. We all leave bottles out. We know how that's going to end up. So using a CO2 and a few other things in there, you're essentially going to, in between these fermenters, you're going to see those Stargate Atlantis bubblers.
That is fantastic. And that pulls into like a lot of... Oh.
Mix it a little bit.
What are we at for temperature? Just leave it for now. It should start bumping off the walls and rotating around. All right, sorry guys.
No, you're all good with that. Yeah, that's another thing that I love about the distillery is like you really pull in a sci-fi theme to it. Like you've done a lot of work for charity and stuff, and you've worked in a lot of that to it. But even pulling like this, like you said, the Stargate Atlantis thing, like putting extra neat little things into the distillery and building them to be like as a part of it, I think is what really makes your distillery a cool little stop. Like beyond the fact of it being a distillery, I think people would just go for that in general, but you've really worked that into it to become like it's a nice tour. It's a nice tour stop, which a lot of these places are, but it's like above and beyond. It's like a cool experience. If you've been there, I mean, you got the Doctor Who telephone booth and stuff, and a couple Daleks around, and you've built all those, and you do it for charity. And I just find that background to you like absolutely astounding. How giving you are of your time as well too.
Well, I figure if I have to live here, I might as well enjoy it too.
And you were doing
I
something
can't
cool.
just drink all the time.
And sometimes you want, when you've had a few drinks, to be enhanced, like. And you were doing something else cool with like the sound system that you were doing. Was it the 2001 Space Odyssey computer, or?
Yeah, HAL 9000. So
HAL 9000.
Essentially, we have we use the Google, OK Google, that home system.
Yeah,
we use that quite a bit in here. That's like I'm at the mash tun. I'll yell out for the Google to set the timer for me, so I know what my times are. And she's talking to me now.
Okay.
I have no idea what she's saying. So we use that, and essentially we've made we've already 3D printed off the HAL 9000 casing, and we're going to take one of those Google Homes and put it in there.
I love it. I think that's great.
Can you hear that thing talking? Give me just a sec. I'll be right back.
By all means.
No problem. God, I can't wait to go up there.
I know. Like, if you haven't seen it, like, if you watch a couple of his other videos that we were talking about he gives a nice tour of it, and it is a really nice layout to begin with, but there is some cool sci-fi stuff that goes in there. Yeah. And the Daleks are working Daleks, so maybe if you get to be friends with them, you might get to shoot some stuff out of them.
Okay, so we have the blocks from the Fifth Element out on the counter, and a lot of people like that.
I do.
I actually took a picture, and we did that, and I took a picture of it, and I posted it, and I'm going, because we weren't having a whole lot of people coming in, so I said. And I put my face. I had the 4 blocks, and I put my face at the end. And I said, "Why don't you come in and be the Fifth Element?" So it was kind of cute. Now in the bathroom, you remember all this hoopla where everybody's taking the toilet paper and everything else, all that. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm kind of thinking, "Oh, okay." So and we already had supplies to the distillery, so I wasn't too worried about anything. But I took a picture. And I said, we never have to worry about our toilet paper. I just installed the 3 seashells.
I was going to say, I'm like, I know where you're going. That's awesome. Do you have them on the wall where people coming out are confused?
They're in the bathroom, yep. Right by the toilet. Yep.
No instructions, just the seashells.
That's it. So, and, once again, we're old, so we go a little bit back, but does anybody remember him?
I don't off the top of my head, and I should I'm going to say no, just because I'm not getting it, but I'm
okay. Yeah. Vincent from a black hole.
Oh wow! Okay.
And
I recognize a bit of it, but it's not.
I might
flashy.
make his little buddy Bob, but and this is one of the handy things having the 3D printer here. Is you just have all of a sudden something hits me or someone says something. As soon as someone says something, my mind just goes off to the left field. Let's see how good you guys are for this one. This is going to be a little bit hard, but there we go.
Oh, the Holy Grail, am I right? Is that
you got it.
Yeah, the holy hand grenade of Antioch.
Yeah,
the killer bunny.
Yeah.
So and we have all sorts of little knickknacks like that out there. It's really. It's entertaining. There's a lot of people that go through and they'll see this and go, "Oh, where's that from? Where's that from?" And it also creates a conversation. So when people come into your establishment, sometimes they're if they've never been in before, they don't know who you are. And there's nothing worse, and personally, there's nothing worse than if I'm looking at something or I'm kind of curious, and these salesmen will walk up and everything else and start talking about what you're looking at and everything else. Well, if they're looking at freaking Vincent here, I'm not talking about my product. I'm talking about this little guy. So once that conversation starts up, I can move on to other things.
It is, and I have the same thing when I go shopping. I hate the dude that sits on your hip when you're walking through the store. You're like, as you walk over to a different TV, they're like, "Well, this is what's cool about this." I'm like, I could have read the thing on the side. I just back the fuck up, like, go take a walk. I will find you.
Yeah, that drives me crazy. So that's why we never come into a conversation talking about our product. We come into a conversation answering a question, being helpful.
That's excellent. I didn't mean to steer it that way, but I was just saying, like, I love that whole part about the distillery because there's just so much neat little nuanced stuff, like you said, and the way you guys use it, talk about it, and you're passionate about it. So I mean,
It's same as when you finally do get a chance to come up, and hopefully we'll by then have our distillery tours. This place won't look like it is now. In our distillery tours, it's unlike anything else you probably had. There's a lot of joking around. I tell a fair amount of stories, and I have a bevy of them. But there's a lot of hands-on too. So you're going to be holding corn, oats, and all that, and you're going to have some samples to chew on, and And every time we do a distillery tour, the still is running, so you actually get to dip your finger underneath the parrot and try that.
Oof.
So we do our distillery tours. It is such a unique experience that you will never forget it. I mean, no one's going to remember the lesson of how to mash and all that. That just goes through your head. They're all looking at the shiny stuff, but to be involved and to do something makes a whole difference. So, we'll come up near the end of the tour when we get up to the bottling table and that. We have several vials of stuff set out in which we have people create their own little concoction.
Oh, see, that's
okay,
it.
So it's a master blending at the very end.
Yeah. Oh. And with you, and just playing off that, with you guys having like the separate, the way you're just, you're blending them together. Well, you're distilling the grains separately and then putting them together in the barrels, but you could hypothetically have some different grains by themselves.
See all those totes? All those totes have different grain in them.
Would you ever consider someone who was playing around with the little concoction thing, if they asked you to be like, could we barrel this level of stuff? Would you ever, let someone play that way?
When we get to a corporate level, that's a possibility. It's not in our, it's not ruled out. It's not available at this time, but there will be a time where, like the barrel at the bottom is going to have corn. The next one up is going to have wheat. Next one up is going to have oats. Then we'll have rye and then triticale. They're all going to be sitting there separately, and they're all going to be sitting at around 70% because that's what I'm pulling off at. Mm-hmm. So then they can pull off a certain amount to make that blend, make that flavor, and we'll show them a few other tricks as well because we have a bevy of them, and create something they like. Now, we show it all in a scientific form where they have to record everything and everything else. We use syringes mostly so that they can keep track of everything. And when they get that blend they want, that's a possibility down the road.
That's just exciting. Because just, by the way, and how in depth you're going with it, I'm like, I can see that triggering other people's brains, like going later on and being like, how, rather than starting your own distillery, can we just piggyback off yours?
Yeah.
Kind of.
And we've had that request as well. So that's that's contract distilling. We also entertain that as well. Once again, further down the road, we have a lot more things happening. Right now, we're just trying to get on our feet and get going. Our plans will become more stable as we go. Right now, we're just having a bitch of a time trying to get rid of the sanitizer and get into some vodka soon.
And that had to throw your whole world off, because isn't it a little, I don't want to say more difficult to do the sanitizer, but isn't it more time consuming to do the sanitizer?
Let me tell you the little story I have. We had 6 of these totes all filled before we opened our doors. And we had 400 liters already blended and ready for our moonshine. That way we could constantly draw that and refill it fast. 2 weeks of opening, we made our liqueurs, we got everything on the shelf, people were coming in, and then it hit. And the request for sanitizer came. So everything got emptied. I had 3 totes set up for barreling. They were all done, just had to throw them in a barrel. it all got turned into sanitizer.
Oh.
Yeah, I staved off my whiskey as long as I could, but after emptying all the single totes, I had to go into the whiskey and use that as well. That hurt, just mentally more than anything. We met our demands for the hospitals and everything else, so we had some of the greatest smelling sanitizer. Every time I sold a bottle or gave a bottle, I had to make sure I said, "There's hydrogen peroxide in here. Don't drink it." By the way, it's all like cast strength. So, and we were just about. We had reached the point that we have set dates for everything we want to do. So the 2 weeks that we'd gotten everything squared away, we could cruise with all that, and we were going to build up more in the whiskey. It was supposed to be switched over to over to vodka, because our vodkas and gins are very heavy. Lisa loves gins. She loves designing different gins. So we have a great recipe. There's like 60 recipes we've already tried. She wants to really crank them out on these. And she loves that experimentation, doing that sort of thing. So we looked at it and going, okay, well, we have to do sanitizer. So when we run a whiskey or even a vodka, you load up one still or even both stills, and it's an 8 to 10 hour, both stills 12 hours to run them slow, run them nice and even. And, if you're running the vodka, you've got all the towers in play. When we're doing sanitizer, we also have all the towers in play, but we load the stills. From the time we open up that steam valve, in 3.5 hours, we're done. The inside of my towers look like hell.
Yeah.
So I'm pushing it out because you don't care what it tastes like for sanitizer. So I'm pushing it out pretty hard. And it's great. It does great for the product. It's a bit of a deterrent with the smell because all the heads, all the tails, everything's in there. It's just the whole inside of my towers are all copper. And copper is there to remove sulfates and some impurities from what you run. You run it slow, and it does that job. So you can see there's a nice dark yellow or golden copper color on my tower right now. They're just about at the edge where they need to be cleaned back up again because I'll never let them go black. But the insides, I can't even see my plates anymore. They're just black.
And I've seen some other places where everything's just coming out green. Like it's just, and I'm like, well, I guess it doesn't matter. But at the same time, it looks like you're distilling algae,
Yep. Yeah. So we've got all the chemicals on hand. The whole system, all of this, is all on a CIP system. So we can bring up the temperature and put in the chemicals, and we can acid wash everything, and then go in with hydrogen peroxide and another star sand after, sterilize everything. It'll clean it all out, and it all does it. It's just a matter of me flipping valves.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Like I said, you guys thought about it a lot more than other people when putting the whole thing together. Some other person like, I don't want to take this apart and do this again.
No, the still right above my head here. That is our CIP still. So I put all the liquid in there, put in the chemicals, and then I just turn on the pump after I warmed it up. Turn on the pump. It's already cleaned out the main line over to the condenser. Turn on the pump, and each plate has a CIP system in there. So then I flush the copper tower out. It goes back to the still. I flush out the 2 vodka towers. They go back to the still. The gin basket can be done. It goes back to the still. And then I turn it, and I can do the mash tun and all the fermenters. It all goes back to the still. And then when the still's all done, I just turn it over, and I wash out the first still. And then once the first still's done, flush it down the drain. It's all done.
Nice.
So I had a question then. So between what you have designed for ease of use and longevity, and also your geographic location, what can you do that other people can't do?
Well,
Yeah, the wife's not here.
Okay, what do you want to do that the other people don't want you to do?
She's kicked her head in. Okay, so I can't go down that line. Hold on a sec.
That's the only one that's available right now.
I've called every CSC.
It's all good.
I can restaurant and they've got a bowl for me in here.
But you gotta love how he gets excited when you ask a question.
Okay, that's okay. My course has a.
It's like the mad scientist is like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah, the only thing I would do is you have the brand name and all that. You just do a search on that brand name and see what the reviews are. So, like, just a Google search? Yeah, just Google search. Yeah, not right on that site. And if they're favorable, then go for it. Sorry, I'm back. Our pressure wash died this morning, and we have to get a new one.
oh, well, that's no fun. I thought you were arguing with TTB labels or something like that up there. You're like,
No.
just send it in again.
So, back to Mike's question. So, yeah, we have a lot of. See, there's an advantage to us. At our age, this is not providing our living. Doesn't have to. We're in such a state that this is where we play, this is where we have fun. We want to get nice and busy and everything else, and we do like to make money, but this is where we primarily get to play, create, do different things. And we've already talked about some of those things I'm doing. There's a whole whack of things that we can do prior to getting into this room. But we are one of the few distilleries. There's only one other in Canada that has a dual still setup. So I can run both stills, and I had them. For sanitizer, or even if I'm doing a corn run or any of my single grains, I can load both stills with the exact same thing, run them both together. And the neat thing is, with the interconnecting pipes I did, they self-balance themselves throughout the whole run. And with the mixing chamber I put in there, they mix and go equal. So I'm able to control that. I can offset them, but basically with the process I do, I can keep balanced really well, which I'm really happy with. That we learned that with the sanitizer. So that gives me some unique abilities, because now I can load oats in one, brandy in another.
Yeah.
I can load an apple brandy in one, corn in one. I now have the world's most incredible apple pie moonshine.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's just what I was gonna say. I'm like, you can really play with what you want to do there. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. So whenever you're doing any green or any brandy or anything like that, the final flavor that you're getting in the bottle is not what's coming out at the parrot that way. That is such a different flavor, but it gives you the body of what you're going to get. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that body, and everything we do to it afterwards makes a huge difference. So when you're drinking from the bottle and you hold up that glass, and actually, Pat, I'll get you hold up your glass. Okay, so if we look at the yellow in there, the nice golden color and all that, that doesn't come off the still. It comes off clear. So that's the flavoring from the wood and everything that's been done to it after. 80% of the flavor of that was done after the still. So there's where you start looking at it. So your spirit gives you a body. So if I run an apple brandy with the corn in there, that gives me the body of the moonshine, of an apple pie moonshine. Now I add in some cider, some juice, and a few other things, an apple pie spice, some allspice. Now I've got something that is unbelievable, because the base body of the alcohol has that characteristic. Mm-hmm. So the alcohol carries the characteristic, and then we add it to enhance that. And it makes a huge difference. And I could take any of the moonshines and make an apple pie, and it'll be decent, and a lot of the people do. But to actually do it in that way, where you've blended everything, the body of the spirit makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's rather than, like, I know a couple other people will do it and let it marry and sit in a stainless steel drum for a while and let it come together on its own, but you're totally skipping that whole process, you know, like.
Yeah, to some degree, we're still going to have to allow everything to homogenize within a container before you throw it in a bottle. But the neat thing with the dual still system is, if I take oats here, corn here, blend them together. I get something I like. I'm gonna add a touch of wheat to it to give it a bit of a sweetness on the end, and I get something I really like. If I right there, that's where the mixing chamber is. If I do them separately and mix it here, they're doing it molecularly. They bond differently, and that provides a whole different, unique experience.
That's true. Hold on 1 second. Nathan's got one more question here. We're getting close to an hour. We don't want to keep you too long from all the excitement you got going on.
I got another 10 hours behind me, so I'm good.
He was saying, isn't it that 80% rule pretty fluid, though, depending on the wood, new versus used barrels, barrel size, climate, distillation, etc., etc.?
Yep. That's this, and it can't be. Sure, you can say it's science, but that is the exploration of the spirit. So if I put the exact same mash in 2 barrels, I put them in my barrel room or my bond room, and they're sitting side by side. They're completely different. Their flavors are only a familiar family style, but they are a different flavor. If I put the barrel up at the top, it's different in color and everything else. So, yeah. And if I put a barrel in this room, where it's a little more sealed and it doesn't have the smells, whereas in the bog room where it's getting all that nice ground and the vegetation smell, that's a whole different animal. So yeah, the 80%, that's just what I'm saying it is. I don't know what the actual scientific number for it is, but boy, it sure does make a difference. Every little thing you do reflects in what you produce.
Yeah, it does quite a bit. So sorry, I'm just, like I said, I'm enjoying having an afternoon drink today instead of this being at night. Setting up well for the afternoon. And
now,
go ahead, Morgan. I want to cut you off.
No. Do you get Rockstar where you are?
Yeah.
Yep.
At least where I do, yes.
Okay. So, have you ever seen Rockstar Marshmallow?
No, I have not. I have never even heard of that.
It was late at night. We were about to lock up, and I just finished making something called a blue raspberry liqueur. I call it more of a blue raspberry moonshine than anything. It harkens to the day of the campfire, the younger crowd, the whole bit. So it's like a slushy in a glass. It's fantastic. It's got a sour note to it. It really tingles the tongue, and the flavor never freaking leaves your mouth. So it's in there, and I don't think I've seen a blue tongue yet, but it is blue. So I'm sitting there, and I've got a little gram of that, and we're just trying it out and testing it. My son walks in, throws me one of these things, says, "You'll really like this." I thought, okay, fine. I open it up, give it a sip, pour it into the blue raspberry. I'm not allowed to say this, but man, is that good.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, that just sounds like something that would be an excellent mixer with something else, like just a marshmallow with even caramel or any number of things.
Do you think you could make a marshmallow moonshine that had that thickness to it?
We've already worked on it.
Why did I even ask?
It's coming out. It's not a marshmallow like out of the bag. It's a toasted marshmallow taste.
Son of a bitch.
So it's like you didn't catch it on fire, but it's a nice golden brown taste. Oh yeah.
Oh man!
And those are the best ones because someone took their time with it rather than just like jamming it in the fire. Like, I'm like, that's lazy, man. Just keep twisting, twist it.
Yeah. So we've got that. We got the flavor down, and we've tried it in a few things. I want to make a bit of a different spirit to go with it, though, and I may end up doing that with almost. I'm thinking of vodka, and I might add a touch of anise to it just to bring it out to something unique. Not enough that you would never know it, but just a hidden component.
Sorry.
Wow.
See, that sounds dangerous. Just utterly dangerous. And like the best way possible. Like, yeah, I was by the campfire and I didn't realize I drank half a bottle tonight. I don't know.
Yeah, you see why they don't leave me alone here?
I hope you get left alone more. Damn it.
Yeah, being unsupervised is never good. So we are actually going to be starting on rum soon, hopefully. I was planning on the fall, but I think we moved timetable up to around June. So
okay, that's a heck of a jump. And
yeah. I'm just about to order 2 totes of molasses. So
do you know what type of molasses you're going to be using?
You know what? I really think I'm aiming for the fancy molasses. It's a higher sugar content. It's far mellower, and we'll see. I still have a couple more experiments to do with blackstrap, just to see if that bitterness is something I want. But right now, I'm leaning towards a good fancy. It's twice the cost, yes. But if the flavor is superior, that's the way we go.
Yeah, and I've just been doing a little dive into some rum lately, so that's why I asked. I'm far behind what I know in that compared to whiskey, but I watched. Oh God, I can't. Mike, what's her name? Maggie.
Oh, it's not Hellcat Maggie. It's half pint Maggie.
Half pint Maggie on Instagram. She works for Privateer Rum, and I just caught 1 or 2 of her streams, and it was masterclass in rum stuff. Just sit back and kind of get blown away by the information. And I was like, I feel like I should have a pen because this is all. This is all what you're gonna need to know if ever you wanted to think about it. And
I'm thinking you should send me that link.
I will. I will because she does stuff a couple days a week on Instagram. I don't know if it saves, but she would be a hell of a resource because
it'd be great to read. Yeah, I've done a lot of reading.
Awesome.
So I've done a lot of reading, a lot of talking. Visited a few rum distilleries. And I'm watching because there's a couple of really neat things. I like a spiced rum. I love a dark black rum. The only problem is I just don't have enough life in me to get to where I want to be for that one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave that. But a spiced rum, also a toasted coconut rum. So we actually been playing with it. I did some. I've already done some fancy molasses rums in our small still. And our small still has a gin basket. So I've toasted the coconut, ground it up, and I've thrown it in the gin basket. And the neatest thing is, instead of macerating it and just letting it sit in the liquid, to have the rum go through, and over here that's my gin basket there. To have that loaded and have all those vapors go through, catch the oil. The last stop is the condenser, so it's catching all that oils, pulling it up and pulling it down. It's a whole unique flavor.
Wow.
And I'm not. That sounds great. Nathan brought up one other point here, just because, like I said, I don't like to get too far away with comments before I get there. But he was like, he also wants you to make a chocolate liqueur and a graham cracker infused as well, so you can have s'mores shots.
We actually have a chocolate mint, so we call it after dark.
There you go.
See,
We couldn't call it after 8, but after dark is good. And it was really neat because our initial release, we were using a medium dark, and as typically we try not to revise it. If we're happy with where it is, we're proud of where it is, we should be leaving it. But on this one in particular, and I think it's the only one we really, there's one that we changed. On this one, we went with a darker bitter Swiss chocolate. Mm-hmm. And when we brought that down, made it into a syrup and added that, the flavor was unbelievable.
So, just because, like I said, we don't want to hold you up, but what are some releases you have out right now?
You're gonna hold me up. She's doing it.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
Just grab the back of your collar and drag you back there.
Yeah. I roll.
Yeah.
What are some releases you guys have out right now? Because I know we do have people in Canada, other people who watch as well too. What are some releases you guys have out now, or will have out this summer?
Be right back.
That's fair. That was the tug.
All right. Oh, God, I need to get up there.
This sounds like another one of those distilleries where I'm not driving home.
No.
We Ubered to the distillery because we knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, we're going to have to take 6 months off and do the My Whiskey Den World Distillery Tour.
We can handle that.
And this isn't a bad thing, but the Canadian tour could be pretty short.
But it's like there, I can see myself like getting hopped up on the marshmallow stuff and riding around in a Dalek shooting Ben from the back of the head with one of the air guns or something.
I mean, I knew as soon as I mentioned that, like, he's probably already done it. It's
yeah. Which is what's exciting. I'm like, just leave Mark there. Like, I don't want him to go back to his other job. I want him to stay at the distillery because he's
creating, man.
Yeah, his brain is working and moving with it and bringing it all. Like, can I do that? And it's not like stopped by limitation of can I? It's how do I get there with Mark? Like, how do I get to that flavor? And he'll fucking work his way there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have this cast strength ever told you that story about when they were here?
I've heard a couple stories about when they were there.
Good enough then.
No, you can bring it up. Do they watch? It's I don't know if Mike and Ben know.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong. The guys come down, they're friends. So they came down, and it was before we opened. And because we all have different palates, I wanted more variety of palates. And, those guys are, they're well educated with their taste buds and everything. As much as shirtless people can be well educated, but So I brought them in, and we were here till about freaking 3 a.m. But we're right where I'm sitting now is where we were all sitting, and we were talking about some of the different flavors, and they already tried a few things, and somehow, and I'm not quite sure how it got around to it. They said, hey, how fast can you make up something? So I said, okay, hold on a minute. I left here, went into the lab, and I started to rummage through the wife's gin botanicals and all that. I thought, okay, well, this seems like a bit of an odd ad, but we came up, and I came back out, and I had this little vial of stuff, and I said, okay, guys, this is called Dracula's flower. And that's the color it was. And everything else, and this is our Fox Den label. A lot of our labels are still not done yet. So Dracula's flower was a blend of lavender and blood orange. Okay. Done in an inverted simple syrup and added at 50%. So it's sitting at about, this one here is sitting at 25, but when I gave it to them, they were at 40%. And it's, for liqueur, unbelievable. Wow, so, that was a 5-minute or 15-minute. I disappeared and came back, and that's been one of our best sellers. A Canadian has to have a maple. So there's our Sugar Shack maple. That is unlike any maple you've ever had, because I when we were designing that, I went to the LCBO, our liquor store here, and I think I bought every maple that was on the shelf. Took them home, cracked them open. And I might as well take in a Bowie knife, walked up to a maple tree, cut it, and just started sucking on the tree because they were so thick and grossly sugared. So we decided to do something different. So this very much comes in, although it is still our White Lightning, it's very much a whiskey forward with a very sweet backhand of maple. And it sits there for a little bit.
Nice.
The Baron von Riffle. That was just me being an idiot one night. I wanted something to go on my ice cream, so this is butterscotch. The wife loves palm trees. Sorry, each one of these has a story. The wife loves palm trees, and we were sitting there, we're talking about this. I really want to go to the beach. I hate the beach. I can read a book, but that's it. Send me into the Mayan pyramids or in the Anasazi. That's where I love to go. I want to explore. I want to see things. If I go down to Nashville, I'm walking through the woods looking for some pot stills. So I want to explore things. But the wife, she likes the beach. So I said, well, you're not going to the beach, but here's your tropical thunder. So that gives you the image of the ocean. It's pineapple and coconut. There's a slight hint of vanilla in there. There's the After Dark we'd already talked about.
I love the colors that you're getting out of them that are in there. I was gonna say some of them don't really usually look like they follow the suit of the name. I'm just
Yeah. Everything so far I showed you does not have any added color to it.
Wow.
It's all the natural colors. This is the exception. This is probably one of our cheaper products because we actually buy this syrup. We don't make this one. So that's a Moody Blue. So it's a blue raspberry, and I have no idea how to make a blue raspberry syrup. So we do the syrup. We add an inverted sugar to it and a few other things just to get that unique little flavor. But it's a kickback to, once again, my youth as well, and those Frosties.
Oh.
So
sorry, I wasn't thinking about it until you said that, and I was like, oh, now I know where you're going with that. That is
So, all right. So, is your mouth blue from drinking that too? Because that would be really awesome.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't had enough to do that, but when I add the marshmallow to it, it's awesome.
Everybody's teeth and mouth are all blue. It's like
Hey, you talking about adding that marshmallow to the Moody Blue? I kept thinking of that classic old cereal. What was it? Boo Berry?
Boo Berry.
Oh yeah, Boo Berry, Captain. Yeah. So there's the lemon moonshine.
Oof.
Wow.
That actually really came out good. I had to use some of the lemon peels to let it sit for a bit to get the color. Lime, we did enhance a bit. That's the key lime pie.
That one's that's a dangerous one for me.
But we don't have this available
So
yet. And there's something else we do is once again, we all have different flavor profiles. I've said that many times. Before we actually put anything on our shelves to sell, we throw it up on our tasting counter for a couple of weeks and we let people try it. And then we record, do they like it? Whether they want to change, everything else. One of the things that, I really don't like using coloring. I'm against it. But in this case, I had no choice. So this is our Dragon's Breath. That's the cinnamon.
Okay.
So when I mixed it, it was a brownish, clear, and cloudy. And I don't like cloudy in a clear setup. So customers overwhelmingly said add red food coloring to it. So we looked into it, and we went as light as we could to give you that cinnamon look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty light compared to what you could have gone with it.
Oh yeah. That's we don't want to do that.
So you guys are open, right? You're officially open as a distillery. All right. So as far as god,
wait a second.
There's the peppercorn.
That looks like actually a good color for it too.
Oh, it turns out a really neat color.
So people can buy stuff from the distillery. Are you
everything you seen that I held up that had a label onto it is available?
Is it also available through the LCBO?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Once again, we're a new distillery. We've only been open 8 weeks now. LCBO does take time. We missed our first window for it just because of everything we were doing. And one of the things you have to do is you have to get your labels done and all that. And right now we're using our lab labels. So because we are creating so much, we use our Fox Den lab labels quite a bit for people to try, and we've just, as they've been accepted, then we move into actually make the label get off the printer.
Okay.
So yeah, LCBO we're hoping to be in June, and we're going to put our moonshine in first, and then we're aiming for our vodka. Now our vodka is called Sterling Vodka. It is a barley mix with a bit of sweet potato and some rice. It gives you. Have you ever had Finlandia vodka?
Yeah.
No.
Finlandia vodka is one of the nicest mouthfeels I've ever had, and the taste is really decent. It's 100% barley. It's a really nice vodka, but when you add to that recipe, when you add a bit of a sweet potato and a certain type of rice, it really changes the mouthfeel, and it's fantastic. So we're looking forward to that, and we're going to use that as a base for our gins as well.
Now with the LCBO, how demanding are they that you constantly have something? If they just say like, we want so many other cases, could they demand them on a random day? Because I know it's different than here.
And this is the first reason why we're not there yet. We are going June. And like I said, we're looking at doing 3 SKUs right now for this year and next year, maybe a 4th one. We'll see what happens. But when you're a smaller distillery like this, and we're a fair size compared to most, when LCBO calls, they can say, we want 8,000 bottles. You say, okay, because you can't say anything other than that. That call was on Wednesday. They were picking it up on Friday.
Fuck.
And depending on how your sales are, now they have, 700 stores. If they swamp every store with your product and it sells, when you get that call 2 weeks later for the same order, you have to have it sitting in stock.
Wow.
That's what I mean. I think that's excessively demanding, and I think it almost leans towards large whiskey producers up there.
Oh, it is.
It totally favors them. I mean, because
by far, and you can never ever say no. So that's the one thing we had to prepare for. It's to make sure that we always have that stock available. So the second that a moonshine order goes out, well, there's already another order sitting in the tubs. We bottle it, wrap it, put it in the room until their next call.
So that also really favors you only making unaged spirits to be able to handle that, and only selling that in their location. But does have you already looked into sending stuff to the States in smaller quantities?
No.
Okay.
No, it's one thing at a time. Once again, we're not. We know what a big picture looks like to us, but we really want to make sure that we take our bites in Pac-Man style, one after the other, small little bits. We'll go chase Iggy later. It's be manageable within reason to make sure that you can never say no.
Oh, and that'd be the point where I was like, I'd almost wish if they were doing that large of a thing, it'd be like, is there some way you could cap it? Like, listen, 5,000 is you can't. Like 5,000 is all we can do whenever you call up. Because I still need the time to be able to do it by, like you said, like 2 weeks later, I got all of a sudden I have sleepless nights until then because I got a bottle, 5,000 fucking bottles over the weekend, like.
That's a company. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
You can never say no to.
Yeah.
And the second you say no, well, you've cut your own throat. So,
and there's nobody
business.
Else for you, right? I mean, there's absolutely by law nobody else.
That's it. So as a smaller distillery, a craft distillery, watch what you do. So, we figure that we can handle 4 SKUs easily once we're in our position. So our moonshine, the sterling vodka, a gin, and one of our liqueurs, probably Dracula's flower. And, that will give us our shelf presence that we want, and we can actually maybe rotate that out. One product in 1 year, one product a different year. And as long as we keep that sustainable, that's great. LCBO's looked after. Now we can start looking elsewhere and sending it out to different places.
Well, and like you said, then it's also name recognition on these 3 or 4 bottles, and then it's like, where did this come from? What else did they have there?
Yeah.
And making it a trip to get there.
Yeah, and actually, it's not even name recognition that we're heavily into.
Oh, you're hitting on the
little
back.
critter. That's what we're trying to get recognized. That little critter.
Yeah.
So can you like go outside of Ontario?
I can. It just takes a little more setup, and I haven't gone down that road yet. Once again, Ontario first.
Is there any advantages other than obviously spreading out of your product? Is there an advantage to dealing with people outside of Ontario?
Yeah, growth. It's simple growth. The setup you see behind me is not our original in the business plan. What's behind me was our 3rd year plan. We skipped the first 2 years. So when we actually started looking closer and getting the facilities and everything else, originally we were looking for a 600 square foot facility. We had a single pot still with a column mounted right on it. That was our original still, and the intent was to build up slowly and try and get everything. We weren't even going to have a storefront. So for the first 2 years, we're going to work just solely on getting into the LCBO, getting our product there, getting recognized that way. As we got closer and as things started to happen in a certain way, things fell into place. We now have a 4,500 square foot facility.
Oh, nice.
Well, you're going to fill that. So we decided, okay, yeah, we can stretch a little bit. We're well within our budget, and we'll just go do our 3-year plan. And this setup behind me is supposed to last me for 5 years.
Do you think it will?
Yeah. It should, because the next setup is pretty scary. I've already drawn it up, and it's freaking scary.
Do you have room where you're at to expand out?
No.
Okay.
No, for at 4,500 square foot, we're using all of it already. Once we go to our next setup, we need to be in at least 10 to 15,000 square feet.
Okay.
Would you consider keeping this as like the storefront and having like a different building that was doing like the mass production?
No, we're going to build a place right behind us.
Oh, okay.
We'll build our own building and everything. Design it such that certain things. This system's not going to be tossed away. We're not going to sell it because we still have a use for it. But once we start getting more into scotches, continuous column for a vodka. So we're looking at 3 stripping stills and a finish and a spirit still. It's in a Scotch style. And this system is not finished yet. It's still modular. So you see the towers. Right now I have 24 plates, which gives me a fantastic pure vodka. But the each of those 3 towers, I can put another 20 plates on each one. So as you notice, when I designed my system, we measured off floor to ceiling, and I figured when I installed, I had about 3/4 of an inch to my ceiling. I have a 1/2 inch. So that's the intent. I could throw another 10 plates on both those vodka towers, and that's just 2 more sections. So once I have that room, I can expand this system to include that.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. That's just like we could just add a ton of height.
And whether or not we'll check to see whether or not that's going to be beneficial or worthwhile. But do we want to add that much extra purity if we're going to go to a continuous still? Probably not, but it's there.
Now we talked about this a little bit, but obviously DJ jumped it a little bit after that. He has a question because DJ11 is big into rum. He's huge into it. Yeah. You guys do have a thought for doing a rum or two that is in the works. You said kind of for this year, right?
Yeah. I've always been from day one. It's always been my opinion that I don't have to like what I put out. I just have to be really proud of it. And if I'm proud of it, I'll stand behind anything. My flavors aren't always like everyone else's. So, hi, folks. Oh, okay. No problem. She'll show you around. Sorry for me yakking. So, I've never made a rum that I could be overly proud of. I've gone through some flavor profiles that are leading me along that edge, but my base rum is not what I want on the shelf. I've had lots of samplers try it, and they're going, "You're fantastic," everything else. And, okay, can I be proud enough to put it out? Yeah, but you know what? I love rum. I want it what I want. So it's going to get more, once again, we harken back to when I was 13, out in the backwoods, the pressure cooking, making molasses shine. We couldn't even call that rum. That was only molasses shine. But, yeah. And, back then you didn't know much about cuts. I don't even think we cut anything. I remember one time I came back to my buddies, and, when you're 17, 18, you drink a fair amount, and, I wasn't spared any of that. So I came back, we got into the farmhouse, and every Friday night, the buddies, we'd meet up, and there's 6 of us sitting around the table, and they all had their beer. They brought 2-4s and everything else. I said, yeah, put all that away, guys. And I brought out one large mason jar, just plopped it in the center of the table. I said, anyone who can walk away gets to take the jar with him. Yeah, there was a lot of bodies on the floor.
And that's funny to everybody because we've all been in that situation before. I was like, oh, I accept your challenge. And like 45 minutes later, you're like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, this is way more potent than what I thought it was going to be.
I have regrets.
I have no idea what the proof of that was. I really don't. But all I know is that we tried that whole night, and the only thing we could cut it with was Kool-Aid.
God. That's not a good testament to Kool-Aid.
So yeah, we've got 6,000 pounds of molasses coming. So we're definitely serious about it. Now, also, the one thing I always blamed him was that molasses has to be done in a pot still. I'm going to. One of the things I haven't really gotten into is trying in the whiskey tower. So I'm going to try that yet, because our stills, when I designed the stills, I went very much like a Scottish style still. It's a wide body. It rolls the vapors around, and you can actually see it when it's running without the motors. You can actually see everything coming around and rotating that way. So it creates a bit of a cyclone in there, and the helmet's designed such that it also forces down. So in Scotch as well as rum, that's a great style. So with the system, the intent was I can go straight pot. Let's see if I can get my finger right. I can go straight pot over to the condenser. I can go from the pot to the whiskey column. It's a 4-plated column, and it should give me what I want. And I'm hoping it does. If not, this way. You see? Damn. There we go. Oh, this sucks. See this thing here?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my catch. Right now it's attached to my parrot. My parrot is emptying right into it. We use that for multi-purpose. When I design them, they have a mixer motor on them, so when I do large batches of liqueurs, I can pour everything in and it mixes. I'm not sitting here with a drill or anything else. It's all motorized. It also has a graduated section, so it saves me a lot of time in doing that work. But it's also been designed to create a thumper. And I have 2 of these suckers. So I can come from this still over to here, hook it into that thing, come out of that into another one just like it, and then hook it up to the condenser. So I can turn my still into a double thumper system. And I can use the molasses dunder and create a heavier, thicker spirit with that. I'm hoping to avoid that. I'm not a big fan of using thumpers because it's a closed system, creates far more dangerous environment to be using, but it is there. So if I need to do that to get the flavor I want, that's the way I'm going to go.
Oh, well, that's cool. I like it, just how much versatility you have with what's there.
Yeah.
Like,
Everything has more than
incredible.
one purpose.
That's insane.
It seems like you can do more with less square footage than a lot of other people because of how you've thought this out.
Yeah. You know what? Like I said, I have lots of friends in the industry, and we've gone to their small craft distilleries. And every one of them has always left me with that feeling that they're all offering tours, and they're all offering experiences to the customers, but none of them ever thought of it when they made the place. So that was one of the first things we did. When we realized the size of facility we're getting and what we're doing, we started walking. I walked through to figure out where all my pieces had to be and how I wanted them connected. So I actually, in my head, ran through mashing in, ran through fermenting, ran through distilling, and how it all wanted to lay out. Where do I put a fan? Where do I put right now I'm running city water for my cooling towers, but I've got 2 holes in the ceiling right up here that I'm going to mount a chiller up on the roof so that, it's all there. So that's in the future as well, hopefully next year. But once I got the layout of how everything works and how I want it to work, then I started walking through as a customer on a tour. So we laid our place out for a distillery tour as well. we want to put a little station here that they get to do this. Want to tell this story over here. We want to do this over here. Make this the experience that no one else can. And that was a large part of our distillery design. So making it a tour, that's why we have, and you've seen it before, Pat, where I showed you that huge ass laser I have. It's massive. I can make my own headstone into it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, and all the little knickknacks and everything else that goes along to tell the story, create the interest, and make it an experience. And that's what it needs to be, in my opinion. I've done enough distillery tours where it's all just straight information, and when you walk out, you don't remember anything. But to be able to tell a story through the whole thing, that's where it comes in. That's where they remember you. They don't remember that you told them that, you had MLAs and its specific gravity is 1.080 and any of that. That means
the three
nothing.
of us might have, but everyone else, woof.
But some people will get that, and you'll know when those questions come. But to tell that story, to tell the fact that, you started off in the backwoods and, using grandma's pressure cooker, and the only way you got girls out to come out to the woods with you.
Hey, I got a pressure cooker.
Oh. One last question, and we'll let you go, just because I thought it was pretty interesting. Where was it back here? When we were talking about the amount of columns you could add to the two columns in back, where you said I think they're 24, but you could add more.
Yep.
TJ asked, how much more capacity would that yield adding those?
Oh God, no!
columns?
It slowed me down. And all that's going to do is it's going to give me, it'll allow me. Well, I shouldn't say it'll slow me down. Once it's actually normalized itself, so every portion of that tower is the same in temperature, it'll allow me to push that a little bit faster. But it purifies the spirit. So for those that aren't in or don't realize, when you read the bottle, it says 2 or 3 times distilled. In Ireland, they'll load up the pot still, they'll run it, collect that, take it back, load it in the pot still again, run it again. So it's from pot still to condenser. That's it. So they do that 2 or 3 times, and it creates. A lot of people say it reduces the flavor. The flavor never changes. I can tell a corn vodka from a wheat vodka from a potato vodka. So flavor itself doesn't change. Intensity of that flavor does. So when you want a vodka, you're going to run it through not 3 times. You're going to run it through 20 times. So each one of those little windows you see in the tower creates a little still inside there. So it's another distillation process. So when I'm running my whiskey or my moonshine, I'm running it through the still, and then running through a 4-plate tower, and I'm still pulling. And I can get the still to pull out when it's coming up prepared. I can have it coming out at 70 ABV, but when I'm running it through that tower, it's a lot easier to do. I'm not stressing anything. It's coming out slow. It's coming out smooth. It's a nice warm body. I've reduced the heavy oils into there, and I've picked up probably a sharper, drier flavor. So that's why I've gone, and most of my stuff goes through that whiskey tower, because that's the flavor profile I prefer.
Okay.
Where adding more plates just brings the flavor and it purifies it more, so that you can get to the point where it be almost a neutral grain spirit. Do you ever want to get to there? No, you can buy that. That's the big distilleries sell that. You can buy it by the totes, and it's absolutely nothing in there. But even for me, a vodka, if I go to an LCBO or liquor store, and any of the vodkas I buy, I'm going to know what that vodka is made from, because I can still taste it. Although it's coming off the parrot at 95% ABV, I still can tell you what that's made from. I can tell you if it's a sugar beet, if it's a sweet potato, corn, anything. And, by the mouthfeel, by the taste that's still there. And in Canada, there's a 9.09% rule that we can put any shit we want in there.
I will throw you a curveball. Take that.
Yep. Yeah. So for me, a lot of people are saying, it's a vodka needs to have a flavor, although it's traditionally an unflavored spirit. it needs to have a flavor, in my opinion, to make it stand out, to make it desirable.
Yeah, and it makes it so much better. Even if we've had some people here that we've had some tried some barrel aged vodka. We're just like you said, it's just adding that titch of depth that you weren't getting before that makes it kind of unique and special. So
yeah, I mean, if you take like a straight corn right from the pot still, it's heavy, it's oily, depending on how it's run, it's really thick. You take the same corn, same mash if you want, run it through all the towers, get it to a vodka. It's light, it's refreshing, it's very easy on your palate, but it's still flavored. Bring it to the center, and you get a beautiful whiskey.
That is. And Mike was saying your distillery's hashtag is don't leave Mark alone. but our hashtag is give Mark some quiet time.
It's great, especially when I get the chance and everything's smoothed out and nicely. When I get the chance to explore new things, and it's my mind doesn't really shut off a whole lot, so it keeps on going, and it's best to direct it into something that's useful.
Where was that? But yeah, Nathan was saying clearly you're our people when we were talking about just the enjoyment that you're getting out of doing it and trying all sorts of different stuff. Like you also try to, when you have people going out there, you're really making people feel at home or a part of the situation. So
you know what, this experience behind me, this has been a blessing. Prior to this, I had my own business again, and I was designing and building airplanes. And the clientele I dealt with were a whole lot different. They were well-off people as a rule, and very demanding. Their demeanor was always soured to some degree, for the most part. And I've dealt with some incredible people. A lot of them I liked, some I didn't, but that was business. I've come into this, and I've enjoyed so much of it. The exploration, the development, it's an endless world of discovery. And as long as we keep going, I'll always be happy here. I don't have to climb into a Dalek and shoot people to be happy anymore.
But you can.
But you can. But you could. And when you were off getting bottles before, I was like, I can see myself drinking some of this marshmallow combination juice and hiding in a Dalek and shooting people coming out of the bathroom or something like.
So I'm pretty sure you've all seen my little guys out there, the Daleks and the Davros.
Yeah.
Davros he's a half a Dalek. He's the creator of the Daleks from the TV show. He's Mike Myers type of mask, and he only has one arm the whole bit, and he is an absolute dick. I mean, he's called Space Hitler, so that's his mentality. That's the way he talks.
So he works for the LCBO, is what you're saying.
Yeah, not going that far. Not in case they watch us. I'm going to have some fun with that, because as the summer comes along and our travels and the people coming in opens up, we're going to try and arrange for specific groups to get a distillery tour. So the Doctor Who fanatics, the ones that love the show, well, they're getting a distillery tour by Davros. So I'm going to be in that suit, and I'm going to do a distillery tour in it.
That would be. I'm sorry. That would be just so up someone's alley. That would be incredible. Yeah. Like you said, it wouldn't even matter. If people liked it or not, though they would like the stuff you're creating. That would be you won't believe what the fuck just happened this week. It was insane.
And that to me is that's absolutely what I want to hear. When someone's done with it, they're going, we've never had an experience like this. That's joy to me, because that'll be a lifelong memory.
So who's your favorite doctor?
I do a lot of my props from the William Hartnell, the very first one. My TARDIS is the 1964 version. I actually got the blueprints from the BBC. But I think the third one was probably the most interesting, the one before Tom Baker, John Pertwee. Okay. He had some really neat gadgets. So I don't know how well your memory is on the older Doctor Who, but do you ever remember that yellow car that he drove around?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I built that car.
Yeah. It's a funny story,
when when I was looking for the measurements, I brought my English wheel home and everything else. I was going to do it all out of aluminum. And when I started building it, I had to build the frame, and I got the drive line and the rear end from a 65 Triumph Spitfire, and I had to make everything in between. But I needed some measurements from a Ford Popular, which Ford Popular is only in the UK. And that was the frame that was used for that conversion. So I'm trying to do that. And I finally lock into a guy at the Ford Side Valve Club in the UK. And he says, "Oh, that's a bit of a job trying to build that over there." I said, "Well, yeah, but I've got the museums giving me measurements, and I'm getting pictures and profiles and everything else. They're tracing out fenders on the paper for me." So, I'd gone, because I do a fair amount, and a lot of my props have been used in the TV show over here. So, I've got a lot of leeway to be able to do things. But it was in the discussion trying to get the measurements. He comes up and he says, "Oh, by the way, I own the original molds for the car."
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit.
What's that? Okay. Yeah, so he's, once I found out he had the original molds, I said, "Well, what are you doing with them?" He said, "Well, I have no use for them." That's fine.
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Oh, right back.
All right. Oh, God.
That's like so serendipitous. It's ridiculous.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, well, I'm trying to find this. Well, guess what I have?
Of course you have
You
the
have
molds.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And DJ says one of his buddies has a TARDIS in his living room. I'm like, you know how fucking cool that is? Like, I
my
like
God.
weird, cool shit like that. Like, can you imagine just being angry with people at a party and going in there and shutting the door on them?
Yeah. Or
Having with everybody.
having the TARDIS with mirrors around so that it just looks like a normal sized TARDIS, but once you go in there, it's the actual living room.
Oh, he's jogging. That's not good.
Oh,
That's
man.
But no, like I said, like the extras at this distillery are insane. Like,
He's doing, I mean, it's like Willy Wonka, but he's like the if we had the keys to the distillery and what we were going to do, we'd be like, let's see, I'm going to make some jalapeno something tonight.
I would probably never make money because I would be constantly experimenting with crap. I mean,
but even still, somebody's going to buy it. It's going to be a short run, one-off, maybe, or maybe not. But how cool is that? But that person that gets to go buy that bottle because they visit a distillery, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to see what other crazy stuff he's got."
yeah, you're gonna come back every. Hold on a second here. I can mute that. I forgot about that.
There you go. Yeah, he's
I
doing
thought-
something important.
I thought just the background noise was cool, and then all of a sudden it was like, "Oh, that's."
But he could get. He could just get a wild hair. Eat some brisket somewhere and say, "Ah, man, I want to make some moonshine that tastes like brisket." Okay.
just the fact that like when they were there, he went back and like, "Let me make this thing up," and made Dragon's Breath or whatever in like 10 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
Well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Was it good interesting or bad interesting?
Someone shut the water off in the back room. The condenser didn't have any
geez.
water.
Okay.
Well, that's a good thing to add to it. So
Yeah, 95% alcohol vaporizing.
Well, that sounds like a fun afternoon.
Ooh. I think I'm already half wasted from the vapors.
that's what I was gonna say. Like when you open that up, how are you doing now? Because I've heard a couple of people go through some of the distilleries or the warehouses in Kentucky where it's the upper levels and it's like where they have a bunch of angel shares. Like, yeah, I had to come out. I was pretty tore up.
Well, it was coming out of there fast enough that or with enough force to actually push the hydrometer out of the parrot.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
So we've opened up there's a garage door right there. There's a fan up there turned on, so that's extruding, taking that out. But yeah, the water just got shut off. There's no condensing happening.
Oh, well, I'm glad you guys caught it when you did, rather than having some other issue.
Eventually, it would have gotten up to me, I'm sure.
Would have seen Mark start to take this like weird tilt to the left as the
Slowly start to fall.
yeah.
But I can't appreciate how much you've come on and just the wealth of information that you throw at people, Mark, is awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I absolutely love. Like I said, you don't keep too much to yourself when you're explaining stuff and telling people how they're doing it, how you're getting there. That's absolutely fantastic.
You know what? There is no secrets. You know, a lot of people say, you know, they're not going to tell you anything, but the only two secrets I keep are what yeast combination I use, because we developed our own, so it really, you know, doesn't. I don't want to go into too much detail. And yeast is a good amount of what our flavor is.
Yep.
And how I cut things. So I'll tell you what's in there, but I'm not going to tell you how I cut it. That's your own experimentation. As long as I keep those two, she doesn't get bitchy at me.
we had Alan Bishop from Spirits of French Lick, and he is very similar about that. He's like, I'll tell you all sorts of shit, you know what, because you have a different still. You make different cuts. You do you're not gonna I'm 99% sure you're not going to come up with what I have with even all the information I give you. And he's pretty big into yeast strains as well too. So I'm actually kind of I'm glad to hear you are, because there's a lot of distilleries that kind of gloss over that and are like, not a big deal, when as time's starting to roll on here, it's starting to become more prevalent how unique they can make a spirit, even with like that, you know, maybe 5 to 10% difference. It can really, you know, add that extra torque into what's coming out of it.
Yeah, you know, honestly, we've taken a fair amount of course with Lolland, both Lisa and I, and we've learned a lot from them. We're still a long ways away from, you know, having a full understanding, and we may never in our lifetime do that. But we've gotten to the point where we can develop our own strains and go after certain flavors. So, and we do that, but it's not something you need. It's something to make us unique. Yep. But if you're doing something like a high alcohol spirit or vodka, EC 1118 is a great yeast to use. It's a champagne style yeast. It handles the higher sugar contents. It's far more tolerant. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with someone starting out. There's nothing wrong with using a bread yeast. You know, as long as you control, and there's certain things that affect the yeast and what yeast you can use. So if you keep your specific gravity to 1.080 and below, a bread yeast can tolerate the amount of alcohol that's going to be there. So that's just below 11% potential alcohol in a fermenter. Doesn't matter what size it is. As long as it's below that, most bread yeast will be able to tolerate that. And you know, when you get into higher, then you start stressing. You'll need to pick a different yeast for that. Once again, when you're into rum is all sugar. It's the whole thing. So you need a specific yeast for that, one capable of handling an 18% alcohol. You know, and alcohol kills yeast. So you know, you got to watch some of that.
That's true. I don't know what happened to Mike, but that's okay. He'll be back in a second. But like I said, we're gonna go.
He didn't have a dry still, I'm sure.
The way you said it that way really kind of makes it sound like a really big issue. But I just want to give you a second. Do you guys know? I obviously you don't know when with the COVID thing going on, you don't know. Are you still planning on having your grand opening this year? Maybe kind of late fall? No, more next year.
No. And that's it. Everything's been thrown into flux so much, and we don't want to. In any way encourage gatherings. So we decided that we'll likely have our grand opening and our first anniversary on the same day.
That's actually a really good, responsible way to look at it, because with as much work as you're going to be putting into tours and everything you're doing, you don't want to have an event where everything kind of backfires on you. You know.
And I mean we got live bands coming in. They're gonna be set up right in front of the stills in the corner and the whole bit. So you know, food trucks and all that are going to be here. It's a fairly big event we have planned, and we will have smaller events throughout the year. Not this year because of the COVID and the distancing, but we planned that every once a month to have a live band and have a bit of a kickoff and a bit of a party. So yeah.
Oh, I like that. I was one more thing to kind of bring people in, and with where you're at, especially making it more of like a community event. You know, I think that's awesome. But we're
And
getting
there's lots of campgrounds around, so people coming up from the cities to go camping and that, we're close enough that there's one campground that's going to send a bus over when we have these events.
At least they're thinking ahead. I'll give them credit on that. I love that's. I was gonna say that could be my problem with where it is. Like, well, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be Ubering it if Whiskey Den makes it up there. I'm not planning on driving that day. But like I said, I just want to make sure you got that stuff out. We'll let you go here in a second. I'm just gonna plug what's coming up this week for us. Monday, we're having Colin Keegan on from Santa Fe Spirits. This Kilkeegan Single Malts. We'll be talking to him. And then next Friday, we're kind of venturing out of standard discussions with people. And we're going to be moving to a wrestling with whiskey episode on Friday. We're having Steve and Andrew Card on. He's big into wrestling. And we're just going to be discussing it. Oh, he's taking us on a quick tour. Okay, we're going to.
For those that haven't.
For those that haven't seen it, that's just what I was going to say. I was going to let you do, kind of plug the place. But if you want to take a walk through, I mean, this would be good for a lot of other people who haven't seen it. Car we were talking about, it's pretty exciting. It's definitely a tourist stop.
Yeah.
We can't end without showing this. Let's hope no one's in there.
The toilet paper is there. Like, there's such a prank we're gonna play on people if it's like us and cast strength. Someone's taking the toilet paper and what, you didn't know how to use the 3 shells? Jesus! All of a sudden, Mark's like, now I have to make 3 new shells. Damn it!
And we just got a shipment of bottles in and all that. So
nice. Cool. But
so we had the recipe still back here. We have the little glass still, so you can see that sitting here. And this will be part of the tour as well. This is our lab. It's not set up for tours. There's a small recipe still. We play with that. And you've heard me mention the laser. Mm-hmm. That's that blue thing.
It's viciously big and cool.
Yeah, so I can make my tombstone on that if the wife gets really upset with me. And then there's my forever home.
Yeah.
That's for the days I screw up.
I could see someone popping out of there at some point and scaring the crap out of people too. But that's a whole different night.
Well, that'll be me sitting in Deborah. And just as someone walks by, I'm going to reach out and grab them.
I just like the excitement that would cause with whoever it is. Just the sheer shriek, like, what the hell happened? Oh, God.
Well, I used to do that at the Comic Cons a lot. I'd be sitting inside them, I'd have the mask on the whole bit. And then I wouldn't move. Like 5 or 6 people. I always had a crowd around. And I'm sitting there, and everybody comes up, gets their pictures, and then all of a sudden I do this.
That's awesome. But I think we're going to call it there. I was going to say it's coming up on 2 hours. We don't want to eat up too much of your day. We appreciate everything coming on and just talking about everything.
Yeah. Hey, no, it's been great. I had a brand new experience today. It's the first time I've ever ventilated alcohol.
I kept seeing Lisa going back there. I'm like, man, she's going back 3 or 4 times. I wonder how she's doing by the end. But for everyone in the channel, thanks for stopping in and thanks for a couple of the questions. We always appreciate you coming in and kind of adding a little bit more to it. But from our den to yours, remember, it's not the size of the den that matters. It's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers, folks.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3. Let's get the